So Dominic has been recently answering a lot of Mortal Kombat questions. And for those of you who don't know, he is the story director for Mortal Kombat. And he also does a lot of the directing for the voiceovers and voice production at NetherRealm Studios. So recently, one thing that he did answer was the reason Kronika didn't just put Shinnok back together again. So he actually stated that this was beyond her power to do. So I guess once Shinnok was decapitated, he couldn't be recapitated.
On one hand, it makes sense. On the other, it doesn't. You know, like if she is in total control of time, then technically she would be able to go back in time to undo the action which caused him to be like that. But then again, if you look at it from the viewpoint that apparently the gods are not affected by her, well, the different times and time manipulation, then Raiden's actions cannot be undone to Shinnok. Right. But with multiple timelines, then why did, say, Dark Raiden disappear in MK11? You know, if he's not affected.
I don't know. I don't understand that part of it. Like, I guess. So I guess what he's saying is just the decapitation part of gods is irreversible. Like that part is outside of the timeline reversals. Everything else is fair game.
Yeah, but I mean, that's another thing. So Shinnok can apparently be brought back, right? So you'd assume the same with all the other gods?
You would assume so. Or I would assume so.
Right. Because we have the example of, say, Raiden in Deception, giving his life and then coming back as Dark Raiden. So technically, Shinnok can die, right?
Or even Raiden in 11, dying of old age. So
So what stops Raiden from returning? Is it the fact that he gave his Protector of Earthrealm title to Liu Kang? But I mean, even then, ignoring Raiden, Shinnok can technically be killed. And even then, I don't see why they don't just find his body and then bring it back to his head. Right? So say Raiden had the foresight to throw Shinnok's body into the lava in the Netherrealm or something. Okay. His body's gone. His head's still there. Throw his head in there.
I'm so excited to see how much backlash you get and like people defending the decision that Shinnok can't be brought back and the different reasons the fan base.
I'm excited too because I could totally be missing something. That it could just be that Shinnok can be brought back because he's in the Netherrealm, right? And I mean, there could be multiple reasons for that. But if that is the case, then how come we have Raiden being like resurrecting sort of multiple times, right? Why do we have this example of that? Why is it that in Mortal Kombat, when everyone can come back to life, right? We know this. Why is it that the sort of ruler of the Netherrealm, which is where everybody comes back to life, can't come back to life? This guy took out Lucifer, took over the Netherrealm, is responsible for the place where people resurrect when they have evil or darkness in their hearts, and can't come back himself?
Dominic went on to say that by Raiden decapitating Shinnok, that's actually what tipped the balance irrecoverably towards good. And that's why Kronika stepped in this timeline. I guess in all the other previous timelines, she's just kind of restarted things whenever she felt like it. But in this one, she actually came in and we saw the events of Mortal Kombat 11 laid out because of that decapitation.
Yes, I still see the same inconsistencies though. That doesn't change anything. You know what I mean? I appreciate him answering these questions, but at the same time, they just, again, as we've said, give rise to further questions. I mean, if we're going to say that Raiden cutting off Shinnok's head tilts the balance towards the light side too much, are we going to assume that Shao Kahn invading almost every single possible realm he can get to is not tilting the balance too far in his favor? In the favor of darkness?
So if Shao Kahn had united all the realms, what happens?
The one being returns. Or at least that's what we assume.
Okay, I mean, is that a good versus evil thing? Or is that just a God's thing that's outside of the boundaries of good and evil?
Well, the one being was said to be a destructive being, right? So I would assume that it would be a sort of dark side thing.
And then this raises that question too. Where do the Titans fall in this chain of events between the one beings and the elder gods and everything? Because we've heard kind of two different things from two different camps on where the one being's power stands.
And we've heard, initially the One Being's power was that he was pretty much, well, the One Being. It speaks for itself. He's the most powerful being, right? I mean, his fragmentation literally gives rise to realms. That says it all. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But then in the reboot era, we have now, well, Dominic saying that the Titans were stronger than him. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I believe so. That the Titans are stronger than the One Being, which, that brings about the question of why didn't they step in when all the Elder Gods were being destroyed?
Exactly. Oh, and sorry, one thing about your previous question about whether or not the One Being returning would be evil. I mean, you do remember in the sort of Deception Armageddon time, after Deception, people assumed the One Being was going to be the villain for the next game, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
But we ended up, of course, getting Blaze. But just the fact that we all assumed that the One Being would have been the villain, and that there were a lot of, if I remember correctly, there were a lot of fake leaks, I think, about the One Being at the time, and then a lot of theories about him returning as the villain and everything. I don't know. I feel like the One Being is definitely on the side of darkness, and for Shao Kahn to be merging the realms, that should have definitely been tilting the balance way too much in the favor of the dark side.
Well, in Deception, were there anybody who had aligned themselves with Onaga in order to try to bring about the One Being? Was
it to bring about the One Being or to bring about Onaga himself, you mean?
Because Onaga himself, I guess he was already, like, as the story mode continued, he was already being revived. But was there anybody, trying to further his agenda? As in to help Onaga or to help along the One Being specifically? Because Onaga and Shao Kahn both had the desire to unite the realms in order to reform the One Being. So yeah, that's what I'm curious. That's the thing. It wasn't that they were trying to bring about the One Being. It's never been about that. What the theory has always been that Shao Kahn and or Onaga have been trying to merge the realms for power. The more power they had, the more realms they had, the stronger they were. But in doing so, they would be bringing about the One Being without realizing it, right? Okay, so that makes more sense. The theory was that the Kamidogu were sort of calling out to somebody who would bring them back together, which was why Shao Kahn and Onaga were so power thirsty. But technically, the One Being was still manipulating from behind the scenes as the Kamidogu. Well, I guess none of that matters because we got Titans. So that's actually one of the biggest issues with MK11, right? Everybody who cared about the lore was very annoyed about the existence of the Titans because it literally ruins the plot lines of the previous games with regards to the One Being, and that also diminishes the effect of Shao Kahn, because the whole point was that Shao Kahn was trying to merge the realms, and that was the entire threat was the return of the One Being. Yeah, one of the problems with these games is always there has to be a bigger, badder bad guy, and that wasn't so much the case during the 3D era. It was a lot of bad guys kind of along the same strength level or the same level, but just from different areas and with different storylines. Yeah. I mean, if we go through them in order, so at MK1 we had Shang Tsung, then obviously Shao Kahn in the next game again after that, and then we end up actually getting an actual god or fallen elder god in Shinnok with MK4, right? Then I liked how Deadly Alliance put Quan Chi and Shang Tsung as the sort of dual boss, because Shang Tsung had definitely had his moment in the spotlight as the villain, right, in the start. But as the games went on, he was obviously playable, which kind of, when you put a boss as playable, it kind of, again, diminishes their effect, right? So putting Shang Tsung and Quan Chi as this sort of, well, the Deadly Alliance, it really gave them this sort of power. But the thing about the 3D era was that it did continue to increase in a way that made sense. We had Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, then Onaga, then Blaze, right? Which Onaga, so think of it like this: you got Shinnok, who's a fallen elder god, then you have Onaga, who's the Dragon King. Yeah. I mean, not necessarily a bigger, badder bad guy than a fallen elder god, but he was somebody that was menacing and worth to fight. Well, yeah, I mean, the Shao Kahn knew he couldn't beat him. That's why he had to poison him, right? That's how Shao Kahn took power over Onaga. That's what I was saying. The One Being was working through Onaga, it seems like. And that's what then carried forward into Shao Kahn, except it seemed that Onaga was actually stronger. So I guess if the games were to have been remade today, Shao Kahn just would have hit him with a hammer. And that's how he would have defeated Onaga. Really hard. And then telling or what was it? Wife! What would you like me to do with this
mere lizard or some crap. I don't know. They would write something along those lines. We all know it. I liked the concept of Kronika. I think that she has suffered due to, the writing. There's too many inconsistencies, and she could have been. I've always been a fan of time travel and stuff, but as we've seen, it creates the potential for way too many inconsistencies if you don't know what you're doing with it, and you don't know sort of where your floor is with regards to keeping things consistent, right? If you're unable to carry on something that you've just literally created in the same game, then how are you going to stay in line with things from previous games? And it's a shame because Kronika and MK11 suffered because of that.
Yeah, doing a timeline-based retcon, I mean, it's always dangerous. If they had, gone back to the beginning of time and restarted from there for Mortal Kombat 9, then they could have done whatever they wanted. But the fact that they said, we're only going back to this particular point in time, and then we're going to build off of that. I mean, you have a lot of stuff that's still occurring. Like there's not a butterfly effect that's changing the hierarchy of gods.
Yeah, if anything, it was the opposite of a butterfly effect. Nothing changed apparently over and over, despite Kronika's attempt of butterfly effects, right? I mean, come on, like MK9 was in my opinion, MK9 did the reboot quite well up until the end where Sindel just goes full on crazy, and even then she did have Shang Tsung's soul giving her power, but how can you go from using MK9 as a good reboot to what we got with MKX and MK11 where you suddenly retcon a lot? MKX still managed to keep a lot in line, to be fair. I didn't like the direction they took with it, but it was still consistent somewhat, as shown by, say, Serena turning up and pretty much confirming that Bihan fought Shinnok and Quan Chi, right? But then MK11 is just like, bleh. Here, we're just going to do this instead. Like, Cabal is the perfect example. Cabal, MK9, then suddenly MK11. Everything that happened in MK9 never happened to Cabal.
We've covered this quite a bit, especially in some of our full Realm Cast episodes. But I mean, the one thing they could have done to kind of help make this less of an impact was just say, hey, this is not the same timeline as Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 9. This is an alternate timeline, but it all links everything together. And then they could have had a little bit more room to do what they wanted with Mortal Kombat 11, but they went back and said, no, this is Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat X. This is consecutively the same timeline.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't have been happy if they'd done that, but I would have been happier than what we got.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this Tarkatan Bitesize episode. Who do you think was stronger? Shao Kahn? Onaga? Is the one being still stronger than the Titans in your mind? Let us know in the comments. If you haven't checked out our last episode of the Realmcast, we did actually have a conversation about the upcoming movie. Please like, follow, subscribe, stay up to date with our videos. Thank you.